dialectical materialism. So in the, and I mentioned before that Father in the 60s, and I guess also, well, mostly in the 60s, published 3 books. One was The Divine Principle, or the Worldly Kangnon, and then the Unification Thought, and the Critique of Communism and its Counterproposal. And in that 3rd book, one of the main arguments that is made is this comparison between origin, division, union, action, and the Marxist dialectical materialism. And so it says here, when Marx and Engels combined Hegel's dialectic with materialism, they created dialectical materialism. Hegel's dialectic is a development logic that adopts the formula of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The thesis, antithesis, synthesis formula within dialectical materialism is a formula for development through contradiction, wherein all things develop by unity through struggle of the conflicting parties, namely the thesis and the antithesis. In reality, communists ignore the unity aspect and only view development through struggle as being a dialectical development. In fact, anything or any being that develops when subject and object achieve harmonious give and receive action centering on a common purpose. So this is a fundamental difference between Marxism and True Father's teaching. One is based on development through struggle. Father's teaching is based on development through harmony, or through reciprocal harmony and through reciprocal action. So the if you read Marx's Das Kapital, which I had to in college, I didn't have to, I guess I chose to take that course. Here, they don't believe in harmonious unification, but rather through oppositional struggle. And the example is given by Marx of an egg and the embryo and the albumin and yolk. And he will say that the embryo within the egg and the albumin and yolk within the egg are struggling. They are fighting each other, all right? And then they are struggle. But then, where'd it go? Then finally, bang, the egg cracks and there's a revolution and the chick comes out. But obviously, and that's, and I think maybe Marxists today will say, yeah, we don't really believe that, but you still believe in the basic principle that this was trying to illustrate. And what's actually happening is that the embryo and the albumin yolk are working together. They're working together towards a common purpose. And eventually then that results in a chick. So it's not struggle between the two, but it's actually working together in a common purpose. So if you read Das Kapital, I read it in English, obviously. There are all sorts of really strange things that Marx tries to talk about. And so people today will say, well, yeah, nobody believes in Marxism anymore, but the fundamental idea is still there, that development comes through struggle. And so they're always trying to foment a struggle, foment division, but division in a way that creates struggle. As someone mentioned already, the critical race theory divides the society into oppressors and oppressed. And so that obviously is creating a struggle, right? So that actually leads to destruction and not to development. So the conclusion is that dialectical materialism is opposition and struggle, and that leads to destruction, whereas give and receive oneism, opposition, harmonious unification leads to development. And this is an important thing to consider when we're talking about solving the real problems of the world. Well, we've already talked a lot about family, and we've talked about the relationship between husband and wife as being the two, both coming from God and then coming together in harmony, things like and so forth. And also this idea that development does not take place through struggle, but rather through a harmonious reciprocal action centered on a common purpose, and that is very important. So when an embryo and the egg's albumin, the yolk, stand in the positions of subject-object partners and both are directed towards the same purpose, it is more appropriate to call this a give-and-receive relationship rather than a dialectical relationship. Accordingly, this dynamic should be considered one of give-and-receive type oneism rather than the dialectical materialism. In the three-element nature of individual truth bodies, all created beings necessarily possess three types of relative subject-object elements. One is internal character and external form, or sengsang and hyongsang. One is a yang nature and yin nature, and the other is main element and supporting elements. So now we come to Carrie's question about the three objects' purposes. So we'll look at the grandfather and the granddaughter in this situation. Okay? So when any one of the four elements assumes the position of subject, the elements take the position of its three objects. When all four elements engage in give and receive action, the three object purpose is completed, and the center of all beings is God, and the motivation begins from God, and the self should not be the center of motivation. The father respected people who were experts in their field. You know, he would learn from fishermen, for example. When he went fishing, he would learn from fishermen. When he went to a certain area, he wouldn't assume that, okay, I'm the Messiah, I know everything, all you guys got to follow me. No, he listened to and respected the opinions of experts. So in those conversations, then, Father was placing himself in the object-partner position, wasn't he? He's learning. He's not teaching, he's learning. But that doesn't mean that the fisherman is now the Messiah. And also the example that Carrie was giving, you know, when a grandfather and a granddaughter, little baby, are playing, then the granddaughter can do, basically, your father would say, granddaughter can do whatever it wants. Whatever she wants, she can, sort of tweak the grandfather's nose and so forth. And the grandfather is actually happy for that. And so then the granddaughter is in the subject partner position during that interaction. But this is not to say that the granddaughter is now the Messiah, or the granddaughter is now the head of the family, something like that. So what this diagram shows is that one in the subject has a relationship with God, has a give and receive relationship with the object, and also has a give and receive with the union, and the object the same, and then the union also has this relationship with each way. And so it is not this is simply to say that it's not a static relationship that is sort of unnatural and has to conform to a certain model, but it is dynamic and is ever changing. But the fact that within the family, the husband is in the subject position and the wife is in the object position, this is the fundamental position is always going to be the same. Of course, there are times when the wife will in a particular interaction, the wife will be in a subject position. But that doesn't change the fundamental positions. Carrie?
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. Maybe you could also say, or maybe you already said this, that love is, give and receive action is a dynamic relationship. And so there's a changing aspect of it in living relationships of love with other people, but that there's some fundamental position that does not change in the midst of the dynamism of love relationships.
Sure, yeah. Yes. And that is one point where some people are confused these days, which is unfortunate and tragic. And let's then go to the four-position foundation. When four elements engage in give and receive action, and the three object purpose is perfected and completed, the four-position foundation is formed. So then each of these positions has give and receive action with the three other positions. So this is not just a God only relating to the subject and object. God only also relates directly to the fourth position as well. In the case of the family, this will be a child. The child has a relationship with the father and with the mother, but the child also has a direct relationship with God. And God has a direct relationship with the wife, a direct relationship with the husband. So there's always, this is a dynamic thing that's going on here. And this is the foundation for the completion of God's purpose of creation. So the four-position foundation is probably the most important thing. And this is what was formed on September 23rd, 2017. You know, people, established Christians, wonder what was going to happen in the sky when all the sort of the stars came together, and Jupiter was in, I've forgotten now. Anyway, also evangelical Christians were expecting something to happen that day. Something did happen that day. And this is it. You know, human history came to its starting point with God and Father and Mother and Cain and Abel. So the four-position foundation centering on God with Adam, with the person in Adam's position, the person in Eve's position, and then the two children was formed. And so then that is the foundation for the completion of God's purpose of creation. The foundation. But to build a house, you need a foundation, right? So we've been working all these hundreds of thousand years to create this foundation. Got to have a good foundation. Now we've got it. Now we've got it. And it's never going to go away. The foundation for existence, and the fundamental foundation of love, fundamental foundation of goodness, fundamental foundation of power and energy, and fundamental foundation for 3 stages, because, we have 3 levels there, and the fundamental foundation for the numbers. God is the God of numbers, and for the numbers 4, 3, and 12. 4, obviously, because you got 4 positions here. 3, because you have 3 levels, and also each position is relating to 3 others. And 12, because if you count the number of arrows here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. You got 12 arrows there, 12 directions in which things are working. So these are some of the numbers that God is going to use when it comes to the providence of restoration. So the four-position foundation is so important. And finally, it is here, on September 23rd, 2017, or the 8th month, 4th day by the heavenly calendar, which we will celebrate this year on September 10th. All right, so the types of four-position foundations, there are many, many types. So we have the individual. This is the mind and body centering on God. Mind and body come together to create a completed human being, not just any human being, but a original human being, a completed human being, when this mind and body are united, centering on God. But Paul said, my mind and body are not united. I try to do good, but there's a law within me that keeps trying to make me do evil. So mind and body and Paul were not united. And Father would stand in front of people and say, okay, raise your hand if your mind and body are united. Of course, no one dared raise their hand. Our mind and body is not united. Yeah. So we are contradictory beings. This is why we say that. And sinful human beings are contradictory beings. We have both good and evil within us. And so that's why we are always repenting and always, like Carrie said, Gen said her prayer, was it Carrie? That we are always pouring clear water into the mud so as to wash out that mud so that we can become original human beings. But this is the ideal. The mind and body are united, centering on God to create an original human being. A human being according to God's original design, a completed human being. That's the perfection of character, the completion of the character. And then the family type four-position foundation is when a man and a woman come together, centering on God, right? And each one, of course, is related to God, and the child also related to God. This is the family. This is the family where God is in the center of the family, and this is the ideal family now. Not just a group of people who share similar DNA, but people who share values, who all of whom have a personal relationship with God and with each other, but united, centering on this common purpose of God. Oops, I jumped ahead there. And then the dominion, or over the universe, four-position foundation, relationship between human beings and the rest of creation, all things we say. And then also that will produce God's ideal of creation. So a four-position foundation is important there for existence, for multiplication, for action. And we praise God that it is now coming. Yes, it's now coming. Okay. So Father by himself could have this, but not this. He could have oops, I'm not showing you my pointer, am I? Father by himself could have the individual four-position foundation, but it took until 2017 to create to complete the family four-position foundation, and I'm sure soon we will have also the four-position foundation with the relationship to the creative with the all of creation. Yeah, IPCC notwithstanding. Okay, and then the mode of existence of the four-position foundation. Okay, now here we go to above, front and back. It's circular motion, but it's also spherical motion, because this is dynamic. It's always changing angles, and so it's actually not just a square like this, but it's actually a sphere. It's spinning. It's spinning. The subject and object are spinning around, and also it's spinning, and then also it's spinning. Standard of absolute values, God, absolute values, true love, true life, true lineage, and absolute sex, and the privileges of true love, and this is important, rights of equal status, right to live together, right of participation, right of inheritance. This actually is the vision that Father gives us for our relationship with God when we become His true object partners of love. That we have right of equal status as God. Boom. The Christians go running for the hills on that one. Because God is not some far off. He's bringing us up to be equal status as God. And right to live together with God. And the right of participate. So right of participation means that anything that God does, we can be there. And also the right of inheritance. God wants to inherit everything to us. God wants to inherit everything to us, so that we are the owners. But to be owner means that you got to take care of it. You got to have interest in it, and you got to know about it, right? Right? You got to know about it. I don't really have a ownership over this computer because I don't really understand it. If it breaks, I got to go to someone who does. So I wish I knew more about it. But, the creation, again, the example of the second king, when he goes out into the woods, he's just his encyclopedic knowledge of all the plants and trees and grasses and flowers and everything is just incredible. And we really praise God for that, because he's interested in creation. And so he is developing the ownership over that. I don't know if it's perfect or not. That's for God to decide, true Father to decide, but I'm certainly very impressed by it. And here she's above and below. So God and human beings, right and left. This is husband and wife. And then front and back. As we said, this is siblings, with the oldest brother being in front and the others in back. But there's a center here. And this center is always where God resides. And this is the idea of the perfected and completed family ideal. That's the kind of family that we are trying to build, and we'll get there. We'll get there. Don't worry. If not in this generation, then maybe the next. But we will get there. I know. And the omnipresence of God. See, in the world where God's purpose of creation has been completed, all individual beings embody God's original internal nature and original external form, giving rise to spherical motion of forming the basic foundation for God's governance and action. In this way, God becomes universally present in all created things. So this is not pantheism to say that God is present in all created things. It just means that he has a relationship there, and he is expressed through all the created things, to male and female animals, and men and women, and human beings, and the stamen and pistil, and the plants, and so forth. So he is omnipresent. He is present everywhere. And the multiplication of life, without exception, for living beings to continue to exist, they must reproduce. And this multiplication takes place through the origin, division, union, action that results from give and receive action. So here the subject-object union, so then the stamen and pistil, male and female, offspring. This is how reproduction and the multiplication of life takes place on the earth. And the reason that all beings are comprised of dual characteristics, well, for the sake of existence. Energy, you have to have energy for existence. And energy comes from give and receive action. Give and receive action requires two partners. You gotta have a partner in order to have give and receive action. And the second reason is for the sake of perpetuity. Yeah. So if we are created by God as eternal beings, then that means that there has to be a perpetual, eternal give and receive action going on. So that's why even within our spirit self, we have a spirit mind and a spirit body, because there's a perpetual give and receive action going on. God will, if we reach completion, then God will reside in our spirit mind, and then our body will be moving according to that in the spirit world. Yeah.
Tim?
Yes.
I'm really trying to understand, as I mentioned earlier, that more deeply Sung Sang, Hyung Sang, and Yang and Yin. And could you say that one of the main reasons for the manifestation of Yang and Yin in the created world is for the fulfillment of love? That you need, man and woman, you need two beings in order for love to be fulfilled. Because that's not really the nature of Sung Sang and Hyung Sang. Our minds and bodies are so that we can exist. We exist through, but would you think that would be a correct
Well, yeah,
thing to
because
say?
love is what flows from the subject partner to an object partner. So yes, without the two, the yang and the yin, you could not have love. Love would not be able to flow. It flows from Shimjung, but then it flows to an object partner, and is reciprocated with beauty.
Would you say that you could distinguish the two sets of dual characteristics by that would be one way by which you could talk about the as being different? Thank you.
All right, then let's go to the purpose of creation. We've already covered this a little bit to say that God's purpose of creation is joy, and motivation is Shimjong. The purpose is joy. Motivation for God's creation is Shimjong is his essential attribute, and it's the root of God's true love and the core of God's character. Remember, Shimjong is the shorthand way of thinking of Shimjong. The easiest way is to say, I think, is to say that irrepressible love. But a more correct definition is it is the irrepressible impulse of the heart to give love or invest love in an object partner so as to receive and experience love and joy. So it is that impulse, that irrepressible impulse to give love, always, always, always. It's irrepressible. You can't stop loving. Okay? And then receiving love flows to the object, and then joy is returned. So then this is the Shimjong impulse. Yeah. The purpose of creation is joy, because the object returns joy to the subject partner, and God created human beings as ones who resembled him. It says in Genesis 1:27, he created human beings in his own image, it says in 1:27. Man and male and female, he created them. All right? Here. So God created man in his own image. In other words, he created human beings to resemble himself. And that's important, because it's when we resemble God that we give him joy, the most joy. And in the image of God, he created him, male and female, created he them. So Genesis 1:27, then John 14:20. John 14. At that day ye shall know that I am in my Father, and ye in me, and I in you. John 14:20. Yes. And then Matthew 5:48. Well, that's of course we know that one. That's you shall be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Yeah. So that's Matthew 5:48. And then the object of Shimjong, Genesis 1:28. That's of course the telling Adam and Eve to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion over the earth. So object of Shimjong there. Okay, so the purpose and motivation for creation, and then the object of goodness for the sake of God's joy, and God's governance is through the four-position foundation, and God's joy is also through the four-position foundation. God gave the three blessings to human beings in Genesis 1:28, and the first blessing was to be fruitful, which meant to complete our character, the completion of character, to become, as Matthew 5:48 says, perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. You know, I've looked at as I said, I think not perfect, but completion is more resembles Father's word wansong, and I've been trying to find where, you know, in the Bible, in the Korean Bible, we see wansong, but actually in the Korean Bible, there's another word for perfect there. But this is going to get too far down the rabbit hole. But I've been looking at this word wansong a lot and trying to find examples in the Korean Bible where perfection is discussed. But anyway, completion of the character, individual character, and is what is. So when mind and body centering on God become one. Right now we are not one, but when they do become one, then that is the completion of character centering on God. That gives us divinity, God's divinity, that we will become heavenly people, and Shimjong, absolute sex, and we then this is the purpose actually of a Shimjong education. And then in the second blessing, and these are not, as I mentioned, these are not necessarily consecutive. There's a lot of overlap. You cannot say, well, no, you can't start the family yet because you're not yet perfect. As the king was saying one time, some people don't want to get blessed because they think they're not ready. But he kind of corrected that, saying, well, you are ready. You can't wait until you're completely perfect before you get married. That's not the way to do it, because, well, husband and wife complete each other. They help each other reach completion. Now, I know that I'm a completely different person from the Tim Elder that married or was blessed with my wife, because she has changed me, and I have changed her. We are changing each other. We're not yet perfect. We're not yet complete, but we're working toward it, and we've, I think, come at least a significant way toward that goal. So these three are not consecutive. You can't have dominion over the universe until you've got a perfect family. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. Don't wait like that. So we're always learning about the universe and about the environment, and trying to understand how we can improve our dominion or our governance over the environment. But with this family, we have from the family of good people, we have a world of goodness and heaven life and education of norms. Education of norms, we know the rules that we follow. Rules that we follow. Don't lie, don't cheat, this kind of thing. Yeah. And then the three blessings. The third is to have dominion, and this is the reciprocal relationship between human and the rest of creation, which we refer to as all things. And then from that then comes God's ideal world, kingdom of heaven in the physical world and the spirit world, and that is Cheonryuk. Yeah. And Cheonryuk, to have the constitution of Cheonryuk, but it's going to be a process of coming about. The Constitution provides a framework through which we can incentivize goodness, I would say. Incentivize goodness and discourage evil. Because in Cheonryuk, you can make bad decisions. People will make bad decisions, but then you have to take the consequences of your own decisions, because there's no government welfare. For example, in Cheonryuk Constitution, it says the federal government cannot outlaw intoxicating substances. So yeah, marijuana, fentanyl, heroin, LSD, it's all, if you want it, you got it. But, okay, no welfare. No welfare. Okay? So if you can't work, if you can't find someone who will hire you, even though you come to work high every day, well, if you can't find, then yeah, Sorry about that, but there's no government welfare. So, of course, if you can fall back on your family or you can fall back on your community, that's fine, but they're probably going to establish some limits on you. All right, I'll help you this time, but, you know, what do they call those sessions? Intervention sessions, right? You're going to have a few of those probably. The government doesn't do intervention sessions, does it? No, because they don't love you. Yeah, they don't love you. Yeah. Hey, it's not my money. Yeah, Federal Reserve created it out of nothing, so here, take some more. Yeah. So that's the framework that incentivizes goodness and discourages evil. So over time, just like that pool of muddy water, things will get better and better once that comes into actual force. The greatest of the three blessings, the blessing of marriage, the inheritance of God's true love, true life, true lineage, and absolute sex. And absolute sex is the completion of the realm of liberation through the portion of responsibility. And that's why it's so great. That's why you see the king is so always, someone said that he's always smiling when he's giving the blessing. There's a reason for that. And Father also, you know, Father also was smiling, you know, when he was giving the blessing, because this is each blessing is a tremendous victory for God and advancement of the providence. An explanation of the three blessings: the individual four-position foundation is the completion of character, and God and human being one, as in John 14:20 we just read, and 1 Corinthians 3:16. Don't you know that you are the temple of God? Paul says in Corinthians there. In Matthew 5:48, you shall be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And this comes through Shimjong education. And family type four-position foundation is education for the completion of family, and education on qualifications for couples, and education on keeping God's commandment, education for becoming principal beings, and education on putting love into practice and an ethical lifestyle, and education on living according to the heavenly fortune. Yeah. And then the dominion type four-position foundation is the completion of dominion ideal world, and education for completion of dominion. And for that you need knowledge. You know, you need to know about stuff, whether it's the law or medicine or whatever else, whatever other field you're going into. It takes knowledge and it takes skills. So skills education and physical education. The physical body, the training of the physical body as well. But that's not the most fundamental one. You know? You got to have a character that reflects God's divinity, and then a family that also reflects God's divinity. Then you can have a knowledge education, but not consecutive. You know, you don't have to wait until you have these before you start studying knowledge. But these first two are fundamental to the third. So if you have the first two, you're not going to be working on viruses, figuring out how to change a virus to give it a gain of function so that it will go out and kill people. You're not going to do that. Just ridiculous that they are doing that in these three labs in China and the United States. And we're guilty of it too. Yeah. God's creation ideal and family type four-position foundation. I know Obama said he stopped it, but now we see that he didn't. God's purpose of creation is the realization of true love, because true love is what flows from Shimjong, right? Flows from Shimjong into an object partner and then returns as love and joy. So God can only experience love when he invests love in an object partner. Just keeping it within himself does not give him an experience of love. Even if he is the God of love, he cannot experience love until he puts it in an object partner and then it comes back to him as love. The basis for the realization of God's true love is the family type four-position foundation. And God's true love appears through divisible love. In other words, divisible love means that parents can love a number of different children, 4, 5, 6, 7 children, all equally. And you can have one-on-one training and education with all of them. You can have individual relationships with all of them. And so God can also love each one of us But there's also something called indivisible love, love that cannot be divided. And that's the love between husband and wife, right? If the husband says, yeah, you know, I've got a few wives, that's not going to work. That ain't going to work. I've got 4 wives. The Quran says I can have 4 wives. Yeah, that doesn't work in God's ideal. Yeah. Because love between husband and wife, on the horizontal love, that's not divisible. But downward love, vertical love is divisible. God can love all of us equally. Parents can love all of their children equally. But don't try that between husband and wife. Yeah. Parents' love is downward. It's compassion and mercy. Couples' love, husband and wife love is horizontal. It's harmony and affection. And child's love is upward, filial devotion. And sibling love is also horizontal, friendship and affection. And then the morals and ethics, morals are the norms for behavior and individual life, and norms for behavior as an individual truth body. And let's get this a bit bigger. Norms for completion of the first blessing and completion of character, and the individual 4-position foundation. Okay, and then these ethics, that's the morals, and then ethics, the norms for completion of the second blessing and completion of the family type 4-position foundation. So here draws a distinction between morals and ethics. And then the, let's see here, the order of the solar system or of a connective collective. So we'll see that on the next page here. Vertical and horizontal order within the family. And the vertical order, the great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, child, grandchildren. So this is the universal family of heaven and earth. Maybe the great-grandparents are most likely, possibly already in the spirit world, but there's still a connection there with the grandparents, with the parents, and so forth. Then the parents are sort of the main nucleus of this, and then the children are revolving around this, and this is the family. So the family as a connected body, family ethics. And so also similarly in the universe, you have the sun at the center, and then various planets in the horizontal order, solar as a connected body, and the family ethics there. And the love equality is equality through order. And so human being subject-object, human part subject-object, and so equality is equality of love, equality of character, equality of satisfaction and joy. And we covered on Saturday how that is the equality between men and women, and there is no equality of gender, though. There's a difference of role. The man is the masculine subject, woman is the feminine object, and there's a difference of position. Man is the subject role on the right side, woman in the object role on the left side. And this is the order of the family and father's teaching and in God's original plan of creation. And true love brings with it privileges. Right of participation, right of equal status, and right to live together. This is true of men and women, but it's also true of God and all of humanity. And right of participation, the wife has the right to participate in what the husband is doing. Right of equal status, right to live together. And then the right of inheritance. True love is investing and forgetting and not remembering, and giving and forgetting and wanting to give more and living for the sake of others. You know, I have a problem. I really have we all, I guess, have a problem of giving and forgetting, right? Yeah. I once loaned a guy some money, and he died without returning it to me. And I still remember it. No, because, you know, when he asked me for money, and I talked with my wife about it, and she said, well, you know, give him the money, but don't expect it, and don't expect him to return it. Give it to him as a loan, but don't expect him to return it, which I thought were wise words. But that's not easy to do, though, is it? Yeah. He finally died without paying his bill. True story. And I still remember it. That just shows that I still have a ways to go to complete my character, I guess. Yes. We should be able to, yeah, did I give you money? Yeah, I didn't know that. No, thank you for paying it back. It's a tough course, isn't it? Yeah. The source and origin of true love is God. Where there is no true love, God also is not present. Yeah. So we need to live for the sake of others. Yeah. And then what is true love? Well, it's a source of life, source of happiness, source of peace, source of unity, source of joy, source of true lineage. And true love is the type of love that invests and forgets. It gives and forgets and gives again, gives again, and gives again. It does not expect a return. It just keeps on giving without expecting a return. I wonder what he's doing in spirit world right now. Do you think he remembers? Probably not.
He does now.
He does not. I reminded him. Maybe I'll find a $20 bill on the floor somewhere. I don't think it was 20. Actually, I don't remember how much it was. It was more than $20, I think. Anyway, there's been inflation. All right. Okay. I want the interest too. Okay. No. Absolute sex purity movement and peace movement centering on true love. If true love has not borne fruit, it will remain unfertilized, even if it is planted. So, and Father talks about the fruit because he knows a lot about farming himself. So, if a fruit does not ripen, then even if you take the seed out of it, that seed will not grow into a new plant. It's not fertilized. So if true love is not born fruit, it will remain unfertilized, even if it is planted. And I remember Jesus' parable of the seeds, right? Or someone throws seeds, and some land on the pathway, some land on the rocks, some land on the thistles, but some of them land in fertile ground and are able to grow. So God is always, planting seeds, and sometimes they grow, but not always, unfortunately. Okay. And so the family is the basic unit of heaven. The constituent members are the parents, the couple, and the children, and the relational nature is above and below, right and left, and right, front and back. We saw this already. But the core, that is the center, is always God. So this is not a group that we would say, well, all they do is share some DNA, a similar DNA. This is a group that actually has a strong relationship. These are 12 directions. Here we only have a few of those directions that we in this, but we see that each member of this family has a strong relationship with all the other members of the families. So that's the three object purposes, that each member of the four-position foundation has a direct relationship with every other element in the four-position foundation. And that's what the king talks about when he talks about one-on-one training. And then relationally, it is one body. It's a unified body. In the center is Shimjong, God's Shimjong, or true love. So the more families we can have like that, the better. And we're developing that. We're on our way, step by step. The order of the family is a standard for the order of the universe, and the family is God's ideal of creation. And the heaven is represented by the number 3, that's God, Adam, and Eve. Earth is represented by the number 4, God, Adam, Eve, and the children. And the family, the number 7, God, Father, Mother, husband, wife, and children. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then number 7. Well, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the whole is 7. Yeah. And the entirety is 7. And then the dual purposes. So everything has a dual purpose. Existence has a Songsang type sector, that's the internal sector, that was the purpose of the whole, and the Hyongsang type sector, and the purpose of the individual. And this Songsang type sector is the public. And when we say public, some people got confused about that. It doesn't mean something that belongs to the government. It means something that is well, for God, basically, for God, but also is for the whole. But we also have private. And so Father's teaching certainly recognizes private property. One person asked me, will there be international borders in Cheongguk? What do you think? Will there be international borders in Cheongguk? Yeah. You hope so? I think there will be, yeah. Because Father recognizes private property. And private property means that, okay, from this line to this line is mine, right? And various people have private property, and those private properties come together to form a town or a state. Or if you get more, then that's a nation. Okay, from here to here is our state. This is our state. And if you want to come into our property, you're welcome, but you have to follow our rules, right? It's our property, we set the rules, right? So I think there will be international borders in Cheongguk. But the difference is, because Father actually talks against international borders. So what's the difference? The difference, I think, is that all the international borders that we have today were created by conflict, struggle, and blood. Even the border between the United States of Canada and Canada, you think, U.S. and Canada are friendly, but you go up to Buffalo or you go up there and there's something called the International Peace Bridge, all right? Anytime you see a bridge called the Peace Bridge, you know there was a war there. That's why they call it the Peace Bridge. Yeah, because there wasn't peace there. Yeah, there was a war between U.S. and Canada, right, back in the 1812. I think pretty much all boundaries today have been either the result of conflict or the cause of conflict. Did you know that there was a war between Missouri and Kansas? Yeah, from it ended in 1861, and it started, I think, in 1854. I think about 7 or 8 years or something like that, yeah. So anyway, I won't go into that now, but look it up. Yeah, there was a war between Missouri and Kansas back in the, immediately before the Civil War, and actually the Civil War was kind of an extension of that, some people say. But even that, you see, that was the borders between states often. Of course, many of them were just drawn arbitrarily in London, like between Pennsylvania and Maryland and so forth. But either they're the result of conflict or the cause of conflict. And those borders, look at Africa. Wow, Africa is a prime example. Just arbitrary borders that have been the cause of all sorts of conflicts, because the Europeans drew the borders as they wanted them and took nothing into consideration of who was actually living there. So, yes, there will be international borders, but they will be completely different in character from the international borders that we have today. That's my understanding. So yeah, private. That all that talk came from the discussion of private property. Okay. All right, we're going to end at 4 today, so let's take a break now, and we'll come back with our final session at 3:15, okay?